Ma'am, stop. We need to speak with you.
Is there a problem? I'm a federal officer.
Now, don't reach. Hands where we can see them.
Silence for fraudulent identification. You're being detained.
I'm a deputy U.S. Marshal. I can show you my
You'll
badge.
show it when I say. Turn around now.
A federal agent handcuffed a United States Marshal, not because she committed a crime, but because they didn't believe she was American. Despite her badge, despite her credentials, despite a career built on upholding the law, she was detained, humiliated, and treated like a criminal. What happened next would expose a system broken at its core and cost the government $9 million. August 14th, 2019, Newark Liberty International Airport. Deputy U.S. Marshal Sonia Tyson stepped off a flight from Miami, exhausted from a week-long prisoner transport assignment. At 42 years old, she'd served in federal law enforcement for nearly 15 years. She'd tracked fugitives across state lines, protected federal judges, and transported some of the country's most dangerous criminals. Today, she just wanted to get home. As she walked through the terminal, two Homeland Security Investigations agents approached her. The taller one, Agent Richard Caldwell, stopped directly in her path. His partner, Agent Stephen Katz, positioned himself to her right. Both wore the unmistakable posture of law enforcement, hands near their hips, eyes scanning. "Ma'am, we need to speak with you for a moment." Caldwell's tone wasn't requesting. It was demanding. Sonia stopped, confused but cooperative. "Is there a problem? Ma'am, we need to speak with you about your credentials. Our system is showing your federal ID as flagged, possibly compromised or cloned. We've already contacted the Marshal's service, and they're sending someone to verify, but we need to secure you until then." The words didn't register immediately. Immigration law? She was a federal agent. Her credentials were in her bag. She'd literally just finished transporting a federal prisoner across state lines. This had to be a misunderstanding. "I'm a deputy U.S. Marshal. I can show you my credentials." Caldwell's expression didn't change. "That's what we need to verify. Please come with us." Something in his tone made her stomach tighten. This wasn't a routine check. The way they positioned themselves, the deliberate word choice, the complete absence of professional courtesy between federal agents. This was an arrest posture. She reached for her bag to retrieve her badge and identification. Katz immediately grabbed her wrist. "Don't reach for anything. Keep your hands where we can see them." Now, alarm bells were screaming. Sonia was trained to recognize threat assessment. She was trained to read situations, to understand when something had gone terribly wrong. And this, whatever this was, had already crossed a line. "I'm reaching for my federal credentials. I'm a law enforcement officer." Caldwell stepped closer. "We've been informed you're using fraudulent identification. You need to come with us for questioning." The accusation hit like a physical blow. Fraudulent identification? She'd passed multiple background checks, fingerprint analyses, security clearances that required documentation most people never even see. The idea that her credentials were fraudulent was beyond absurd. It was insulting. "Who told you that? Who gave you this information? That's part of our investigation. Are you going to cooperate, or do we need to detain you?" Detain. The word hung in the air like a threat. Sonia looked around the terminal. Other passengers were starting to notice. A few had stopped walking, phones already out, recording. She knew how this looked. Two white agents confronting a black woman, hands on her, raised voices. This was about to become a spectacle. She made a decision. De-escalate. Comply. Sort this out properly. "I'll cooperate, but I want to contact my supervisor immediately. You can make a phone call after we've completed our initial questioning." They led her through the terminal, one agent on each side, hands hovering near her arms but not quite touching. Professional distance, but the message was clear. She was under their control. They walked past security checkpoints, past TSA agents who looked away, past airport police who saw federal badges and assumed everything was legitimate. They brought her to a small holding room in the airport's federal enforcement section. Windowless, fluorescent lighting, a metal table bolted to the floor. Sonia had been in rooms like this hundreds of times. She'd never been on this side of the table. "Sit down. We're going to ask you some questions. I want to speak with my attorney and my supervisor before answering anything." Caldwell's jaw tightened. "That's your right. but refusing to cooperate isn't going to help your situation. I'm not refusing to cooperate. I'm exercising my rights as a federal agent and as a citizen. Katz pulled out a folder, sliding several documents across the table. These are immigration hold papers. Based on the information we've received, we have reason to believe you're in the country illegally and using stolen identity credentials. Sonia stared at the papers. Her name was on them, her date of birth, but the information was wrong. The listed country of origin was Jamaica. She'd never been to Jamaica. She was born in Newark, grew up in East Orange, went to Rutgers. Everything about these documents was fabricated. This is completely false. Where did you get this information? That's classified as part of an ongoing investigation. An ongoing investigation into what? I've worked for the U.S. Marshal's Service for 15 years. I have top-level security clearance. Do you understand how many background checks I've passed? Caldwell leaned back in his chair. Then you should have no problem proving your citizenship. The circular logic was maddening. She needed to prove something she'd already proven dozens of times through the most rigorous vetting process in federal employment. But now, sitting in this room with two agents treating her like a criminal, the burden of proof had somehow shifted entirely onto her. I want my phone call. Now. Caldwell nodded to Katz, who left the room. Several minutes passed in silence. Sonia's mind raced through possibilities. This couldn't be random. Federal agents don't just accidentally target other federal agents. Someone had fed them information. Someone had pointed them at her specifically. But who and why? Katz returned with a phone, sliding it across the table. You have 5 minutes. She dialed her supervisor, Special Agent in Charge Leonard Foster. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. She left a message, keeping her voice steady despite the rage building in her chest. Leonard, it's Sonia. I'm being detained at Newark Airport by HSI agents. They're claiming I'm here illegally and using fraudulent credentials. I need you to call me back immediately or contact someone at HSI to sort this out. She tried her attorney next, straight to voicemail. She left another message, more detailed this time, explaining the situation and the specific accusations. She tried the Marshal Service Operations Center next, the 24/7 duty desk that should always answer. The phone rang twice, then a recorded message. This number is temporarily unavailable. Please try your call again later. That was impossible. The duty desk never went down. Ever. She tried again. Same message. Someone had cut her off, not just from her supervisor, but from the entire Marshal Service communication network. Caldwell took the phone back. We're going to need to hold you until we can verify your information. How long is that going to take? As long as it takes. That's not an answer. You can't hold me indefinitely without charges. We're not charging you. This is an immigration hold pending verification of status. The distinction was meaningless legally, and they knew it. An immigration hold could last hours, days, even weeks, depending on how motivated they were to actually verify anything. And based on their attitude so far, Sonia suspected they weren't in any hurry. I want to speak to a supervisor. Your supervisor. Caldwell's expression flickered. Just for a moment, something that might have been uncertainty. He's been briefed on the situation. Then get him down here, because this is about to become a very big problem for your agency. Is that a threat? It's a fact. You're detaining a federal agent based on false information, and you're refusing to verify my credentials through proper channels. That's not procedure. That's something else. The room fell silent again. Sonia could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights, the distant sound of announcements over the airport PA system. She'd been in the room for almost 40 minutes now. No water offered. No formal Miranda rights read, because technically she wasn't under arrest. Just detained. Held. Controlled. Katz's radio crackled. He stepped outside to take the call. When he returned, his expression had changed. We've contacted the U.S. Marshal's Service. They're sending someone to verify your employment. Finally, some movement towards sanity. But the relief was short-lived. In the meantime, We're transferring you to a holding facility. Sonia stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. You're arresting me? We're detaining you pending verification. It's standard procedure for immigration holds. This is not standard procedure, and you know it. I'm a federal agent. My credentials are legitimate. You have no legal basis to hold me. Caldwell stood as well, his hand moving to his belt. Ma'am, you need to calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. You violated every protocol in the book. You're detaining a federal officer based on fabricated evidence without following proper verification procedures. The door opened. 2 more agents entered, these in full tactical gear. The message was unmistakable. Resist and things would get physical. Sonia had spent 15 years learning how to assess situations, how to know when to push and when to strategically retreat. This was a retreat moment, not because she was wrong, but because escalating here, in this room, with these agents who'd already demonstrated they weren't following proper procedure, would only make things worse. She held out her wrists. If you're going to do this, do it properly. Caldwell hesitated. That's not necessary. Then you won't mind if I insist. She kept her hands extended until he produced the cuffs. The metal clicked around her wrists, cold and precise. She'd put these same restraints on dozens of suspects over the years, never imagined feeling them on herself. The holding facility was 40 minutes from the airport, a nondescript concrete building that could have been a warehouse or a storage unit. No signs indicated its purpose, just a number on the door and razor wire on the fence. They processed her like any other detainee. Fingerprints again, even though they already had them. Photograph. Personal effects logged and sealed in a plastic bag. Her phone, watch, wallet, everything that connected her to the outside world. The cell was 8 by 10. Concrete walls, metal bench, toilet without a seat. One other woman occupied the space, curled on the opposite bench with her back to the door. She didn't turn when Sonia entered. The door locked with a mechanical thunk that echoed off the walls. Sonia sat on the bench and forced herself to think strategically. Someone from the Marshal service was coming. That meant verification. That meant this would end. It had to end. But the nagging question wouldn't leave her alone. Why had this happened at all? The immigration system had problems, sure. Bureaucratic tangles, outdated databases, overworked agents making mistakes. But this wasn't a mistake. This was targeted. Someone had flagged her specifically, created documentation that looked official enough to trigger a detention. Who benefits from a federal agent being locked up? She ran through her recent cases, the human trafficking ring she'd helped bust in Nevada, the witness protection assignment that went sideways in Minnesota, the fraud investigation involving a state senator's brother. Any of those could have generated enemies. People with resources, connections, motivation to cause problems. But creating false immigration records required access, not just to government systems, but to the specific databases CBP and HSI used. That narrowed the field considerably. The woman on the opposite bench shifted, her breathing pattern changing. Awake now, or at least more alert. How long have you been here? Sonia asked. No response. I'm Sonia, federal agent, if you can believe it. Detained on immigration charges that are completely fabricated. Still nothing. Look, I'm not trying to be your friend, just trying to figure out how this place operates. The woman finally turned. She was younger than Sonia expected, maybe early 20s. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a matted ponytail. 3 days, she said. Her accent suggested Central America, possibly Honduras. 3 days? Have they let you make calls? Speak to an attorney? They say tomorrow. Always tomorrow. Sonia felt something cold settle in her stomach. If they were holding people for days without access to counsel, this wasn't just about her. This was systematic. What's your name? The woman hesitated, then seemed to decide it didn't matter. Carla. Carla, did anyone explain why you're being held? They say my papers are wrong, but I have papers. My attorney filed everything. I have receipts. Did they let you show them the receipts? Carla's expression answered before her words did. They say the receipts are fake. The pattern was becoming clear. Detain first, verify never. or at least verify so slowly that people gave up, accepted deportation, disappeared into a system designed to process rather than protect. But Sonia wasn't planning to disappear. The door opened 4 hours later. A different agent, this one wearing a suit instead of tactical gear. He carried a tablet and an expression that suggested he'd rather be anywhere else. "Deputy Marshal Reeves," Sonia said, recognizing him from a joint operation 2 years earlier. "Took you long enough." "Yeah, well, I was in Sacramento when I got the call. Drove straight here." He glanced at Carla, then back to Sonia. "We need to talk." They moved to a small office down the hall. Reeves waited until the door closed before speaking. "What the hell did you do to piss someone off?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out. My credentials check out." "Of course they check out. You've been with the service for 15 years. Exemplary record. Current security clearance. The immigration hold is based on documentation that doesn't exist in any official system, so someone fabricated it. Not just fabricated, inserted it into the CBP database with enough supporting detail to trigger an automatic detention. Whoever did this knew exactly what flags to trip." Sonia leaned against the desk. "How deep does it go?" "Deep enough that I can't just wave my badge and walk you out." The hold was issued through proper channels, even if the underlying information is fake. "We need to follow procedure to cancel it, which means paperwork, supervisory approval, documentation." "How long?" Reeves checked his tablet. "If everything goes smoothly, tomorrow morning. But given that it's already 6 p.m. and half the offices are closed, realistically we're looking at tomorrow afternoon." "I've been here 6 hours based on false charges, and you're telling me I have to wait another 18? I'm telling you the system is designed to be slow, deliberately slow, and whoever set this up knew that." Sonia processed this information, connecting pieces that didn't want to fit together. "The woman in my cell has been here 3 days. I saw her file. She's got legitimate asylum paperwork pending. Should never have been detained. Then why was she?" Reeves didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quieter. "Because the facility gets paid per detainee per day, and because no one's watching closely enough to notice when procedures get bent." The implications hung in the air between them. This wasn't just about Sonia. This was bigger, institutional, a system functioning exactly as designed even when that design was fundamentally broken. "I need you to do something," Sonia said. "That woman, Carla. Check her paperwork, make sure someone's actually processing her case. That's not my jurisdiction. It is now. Because if they're willing to fabricate charges against a federal agent, imagine what they're doing to people without badges." Reeves rubbed his face, the exhaustion evident. "I'll make some calls. Thank you." He stood to leave, then paused. "Sonia, whoever did this, they had access. Real access, not just some hacker or disgruntled employee. This required knowledge of systems, protocols, timing. I know. So watch yourself, because if they can put you in here, they can do worse." After Reeves left, Sonia was returned to the cell. Carla watched her enter with cautious eyes. "Your friend is helping? He's going to try. That's what they all say." Sonia sat on the bench, the metal cold through her clothes. "How did you end up here? What were you doing when they detained you?" Carla's story came out slowly. She'd been at a routine check-in with immigration services, an appointment scheduled months in advance. Everything was in order. Her attorney had assured her. But when she arrived, agents were waiting. They said her asylum claim had been denied, which was impossible because the hearing wasn't for another 6 weeks. They wouldn't let me call my attorney. Said he'd been notified. But he wasn't. I know he wasn't. The parallels were unmistakable. Detention based on false information, denial of due process, systematic separation from support systems. Carla, before you were detained, did anything unusual happen? Anyone contact you? Strange calls or messages? She thought about it. There was a woman. She came to my apartment 2 weeks ago, said she was from an immigration advocacy group. She wanted to help with my case. Did she ask for documents? Yes, copies of everything. My passport, asylum application, attorney's contact information. She said she needed it to verify my case was being handled properly. Sonia felt pieces clicking into place. Did you give her the copies? Of course. She seemed very professional. She had a badge that was probably as fake as the immigration hold currently keeping Sonia locked up. Someone was hunting people in the system, identifying targets, gathering their information, then using that data to manipulate official channels. But why? What was the endgame? The cell door opened again. Caldwell stood in the hallway, his expression unreadable. You've got a visitor. My attorney? No, someone else. Says it's urgent. Sonia exchanged a glance with Carla, then followed Caldwell down the corridor. They passed through 2 security checkpoints before reaching a small meeting room. The woman waiting inside was nobody Sonia recognized. Mid-40s, expensive suit, briefcase on the table. She stood when Sonia entered. Deputy Blake, my name is Jennifer Vance. I'm an attorney, but I'm not here representing you. Then why are you here? Vance opened her briefcase and removed a folder. Because the same thing that happened to you has happened to 6 other federal agents in the past 14 months, and I think 2 more are being targeted right now, and I think I know why. Sonia remained standing, her eyes fixed on the folder. 17 agents. 6 months. That wasn't coincidence. That was a pattern. Who are you really? Sonia asked. Vance slid a business card across the table. Department of Justice, Office of Professional Responsibility, the Internal Affairs Division that investigated federal agents. I've been tracking irregularities in detention and deportation cases for 14 months. Started with a single complaint from an ICE agent who noticed detainees with valid paperwork being held anyway. I thought it was isolated incompetence. Then I found the second case, then the third. Started with complaints about missing paperwork, lost files, standard bureaucratic incompetence, but then agents started getting flagged. Good agents with clean records suddenly facing administrative holds, investigations, suspensions. Sonia picked up the card. You think someone's targeting federal law enforcement? I think someone's doing more than that. They're testing a system. Vance opened the folder, revealing photographs of agents. Different faces, different agencies. FBI, DEA, ICE, Border Patrol. These 17 agents have 3 things in common. 1, they all worked cases involving immigration or customs enforcement. 2, they were all detained or suspended based on fabricated evidence. 3, within 48 hours of their detention, critical cases they were working collapsed. The implications spread through Sonia's mind like cracks in ice. Someone's removing obstacles. Precisely. Get the agent out of the way. The case falls apart. Witnesses disappear. Evidence gets lost. Arrests get delayed or dismissed entirely. Sonia thought about her own cases. The trafficking network she'd been investigating for 9 months. 3 arrests scheduled for next week. If she was stuck in here, those arrests wouldn't happen. The targets would scatter. How did you find me so quickly? I have alerts set up across federal detention databases. Your name triggered one 90 minutes ago. Vance pulled out another document. This is the immigration hold supposedly filed against you. Notice anything? Sonia scanned it. The formatting looked correct. The agency codes matched standard protocol. But the filing timestamp was wrong. It showed submission at 1400 hours today. Except Sonia had been detained at 11:30. They backdated it poorly, Sonia said. Exactly. Whoever's doing this has access to systems, but they're not perfect. They make small mistakes, wrong timestamps, slightly off protocol codes, forged signatures that don't quite match. So why haven't you shut this down? Vance's expression darkened. Because I don't know who's doing it. The access points are scrambled. Digital fingerprints lead nowhere. And every time I get close to identifying a source, the trail goes cold. Files disappear, system logs get corrupted. Sonia sat down slowly. You think it's internal? I think it has to be. This level of access, this knowledge of procedures, it's not some external hacker. Someone inside the system is running this operation. The door opened. Caldwell stepped in, his face tight. Time's up. Blake needs to return to holding. Vance stood quickly. I need 10 more minutes. Not my call. Processing requires her back in the cell. Something in his tone made Sonia pause. Processing. She'd already been processed. There was no reason to move her unless— They're transferring me, Sonia said. Caldwell's silence confirmed it. Vance grabbed her briefcase. Transfer where? She hasn't been charged with anything. There's no legal basis. Immigration wants her moved to a federal facility in Atlanta. Orders came through 20 minutes ago. 1. Atlanta. 12 hours away by transport. Far from anyone who could help. Far from Reeves. From her cases. From any support network. Sonia looked at Vance. How many of those 17 agents were transferred? All of them. Within 6 hours of initial detention. And how many are still in custody? Vance's pause was answer enough. None of them, Sonia said quietly. Because once they're transferred, they disappear into the system. Paperwork gets lost, hearings get delayed, they're stuck in legal limbo while their cases collapse. Caldwell shifted uncomfortably. I'm just following orders. Whose orders? Vance demanded. Who authorized this transfer? Regional Director's Office. It's all official. I don't have a choice. Sonia stood. When's the transport? Transport leaves at 0600 tomorrow morning. Sonia checked the wall clock. 1847. That gave Vance almost 12 hours to file an injunction. 12 hours to find a judge, draft the paperwork, stop this. But it also meant 12 hours trapped here. 12 hours for them to move her paperwork around, create more bureaucratic tangles, make her harder to find. Not enough time. Not nearly enough time to fight this through proper channels. Vance seemed to realize it too. Her jaw tightened. I'll file an emergency injunction. Get a federal judge to halt the transfer until we can sort this out properly. You have 30 minutes to find a judge, draft the paperwork, and get a ruling, Caldwell said. Good luck. He gestured for Sonia to follow. She met Vance's eyes, seeing her own frustration reflected back. I'll try, Vance said. But if I can't stop this, then I need you to do something else. Sonia pulled out the scrap of paper where she'd written Carla's information. This woman is in holding cell 3, Carla Mendez. Her detention is fraudulent too. Someone posed as an advocate, gathered her documents, then used them to manipulate her case. Vance took the paper. I'll look into it. Don't just look. Get her out. Because if they're doing this to federal agents, imagine what they're doing to people without any power. Caldwell cleared his throat. Blake, now. The walk back to the cell felt longer than before. Sonia's mind raced through options. If the transfer went through, she'd be in transit for hours, isolated, vulnerable, and her trafficking case would die. 3 arrests, 9 months of work, a network that moved dozens of people across borders, exploiting the desperate and the displaced. If those targets scattered, it would take years to rebuild the case, years those victims didn't have. Carla looked up when Sonia entered. What happened? They're transferring me. Atlanta, leaving in 30 minutes. No. Carla's face went pale. No, they can't. You need to fight this. I'm trying. But I need you to remember something. The woman who came to your apartment, the fake advocate. Do you remember what she looked like? Ever. Carla closed her eyes, concentrating. Tall, maybe 5 to 9, brown hair in a bun, glasses. She had a mole right here. She touched the side of her neck, and she wore a ring, silver, with a blue stone. Details. Good details. Sonia committed them to memory. If I don't make it back, tell that to the attorney who visited me, Jennifer Vance. She'll know what to do with it. You're coming back, Carla said firmly. You have to. But Sonia had worked enough cases to know how these things went. Once you entered the system's machinery, getting out required either perfect legal maneuvering or sheer luck. She was short on both. 15 minutes later, 2 transport officers arrived, different faces from the ones who'd brought her in. They handcuffed her wrists in front, the metal cold against her skin. Caldwell appeared in the doorway. Blake, your attorney's on the phone, says it's urgent. One of the transport officers frowned. We're on a schedule. 2 minutes, Caldwell said. Regulations require detainees have access to legal counsel before interstate transfer. The officers exchanged glances but didn't argue. Caldwell led Sonia to a phone in the hallway, the receiver already off the hook. "Reeves?" Sonia said. "No, it's Vance. I couldn't get the injunction. I reached Judge Martinez. She was willing to hear it. But when I submitted the emergency filing, the system rejected it. Said your case number doesn't exist in the federal database. I tried 3 different databases. You've been erased. And without a case number, I can't file paperwork to stop a case that doesn't exist. Someone's blocking me." Sonia's stomach sank. "So I'm going to Atlanta." "Maybe not. I found something. That woman who approached Carla Mendez? I pulled security footage from the building, got a clear image, and I ran it through facial recognition. And her name is Diana Frost. She works for a private immigration consulting firm called ClearPath Solutions. Except ClearPath isn't really a consulting firm. It's a front company. Shell Corporation, registered in Delaware. No physical office, no legitimate business operations. Who owns it? That's where it gets interesting. The ownership trail goes through 6 different holding companies, but I traced it back. ClearPath Solutions is owned by a subsidiary of Sentinel Logistics. The name hit Sonia like a physical blow. Sentinel Logistics was one of the largest private prison contractors in the country. They operated detention facilities across 12 states, housing thousands of immigration detainees under federal contracts worth hundreds of millions. "They're creating their own inventory," Sonia said slowly. "That's my theory. Identify people with vulnerable immigration status, manufacture false violations or lost paperwork, detain them, then house them in Sentinel facilities where the company gets paid per detainee, per day. And the agents? Anyone who gets too close to exposing the system gets neutralized, detained, discredited, transferred until their cases fall apart and they give up." The transport officers appeared at the end of the hallway. "Time's up. We need to move." Vance's voice came through urgent and clear. "Sonia, listen. I'm going to keep digging, but you need to survive the next 48 hours. Don't trust anyone in Atlanta. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to any deals. Just stay alive until I can prove this." "I understand. And Sonia, I'm sorry I couldn't stop this. You did more than most people would." Sonia hung up as the officers reached her. They led her through the facility toward the transport bay. Outside, an unmarked white van waited, engine running. Standard prisoner transport. Nothing unusual, except the timing, the urgency, the systematic dismantling of her life over the past 4 hours. One officer opened the van's rear door. Inside, metal benches lined both walls. No windows, no way to see where they were going once the doors closed. Sonia climbed in, the handcuffs making movement awkward. The door slammed shut behind her, cutting off the last of the daylight. The engine rumbled. The van pulled forward. And Sonia Blake disappeared into the system, just like 17 agents before her. The darkness inside the van was absolute. Sonia counted the turns, trying to maintain some sense of direction, but after the 4th or 5th, she lost track. The engine noise made it impossible to hear anything outside. She was completely isolated. Then the van stopped. Not a gradual slowing for traffic. A sudden, complete stop that sent her sliding forward on the metal bench. The engine cut off. Silence. Sonia's pulse hammered in her ears. This wasn't right. Atlanta was at least 90 minutes away. They'd been driving maybe 20 minutes. Voices outside, muffled but heated. She pressed her ear against the metal wall, straining to hear. "Not authorized," one of the officers was saying. "I have the paperwork right here. Transfer order signed by Deputy Director Wallace himself. And I have confirmation that your original orders were submitted in error. There's no facility space in Atlanta. System's been down all day." One officer's voice, uncertain. "Nobody told us about any system issues. Check your email." The notification went out 2 hours ago. A pause, the sound of a phone being unlocked, scrolling. Then, "Jesus, it's here. Sent from regional operations. So we're good?" Another pause. Yeah, we're good. But I need to photograph your credentials and the transfer order for our records. Of course. Completely understandable. We already have transfer orders to Atlanta. Those have been superseded. Check your system. A long pause. Then footsteps crunching on gravel, moving away from the van. Sonia's mind raced. This was it. Whatever was happening, whoever these people were, they weren't taking her to Atlanta. They were taking her somewhere else entirely. The rear doors opened suddenly, flooding the interior with gray afternoon light. A woman stood, silhouetted in the opening, mid-30s, business suit, blonde hair pulled back. Diana Frost, the same woman from the security footage Vance had found. "Agent Blake," Frost said pleasantly. "I apologize for the uncomfortable transportation. We'll have you somewhere more suitable shortly." "Who are you?" "Someone who wants to help you understand your situation." Frost climbed into the van, pulling the doors partly closed behind her. "You've been asking questions about missing agents, detention cases that don't make sense, paperwork that vanishes. You've been manufacturing violations." That's an ugly way to phrase it. We prefer to think of it as identifying inefficiencies in the system and creating opportunities for correction. Sonia stared at her. "You're detaining innocent people to fill prison beds." Innocent is a strong word. Everyone we process has some irregularity in their status. We simply ensure those irregularities are properly documented and addressed through the appropriate channels. Channels you control. Frost smiled. "The private detention industry is a $9 billion market, Agent Blake. Sentinel Logistics operates 43 facilities nationwide. Each one requires a minimum occupancy rate to remain profitable under federal contracts. When occupancy drops, profits suffer. We're simply maintaining efficiency by destroying people's lives. By enforcing immigration law, the law exists. We didn't write it. We just help ensure it's applied consistently." Frost leaned forward slightly. "But you've become a problem. You and your little investigation, making waves, asking uncomfortable questions. So now we need to help you understand why continuing down this path would be unwise. You can't make me disappear. People know where I am." "Do they?" "Your supervisor thinks you're being transferred to Atlanta for disciplinary review. Your attorney thinks you're in federal custody. By the time anyone realizes you're not where you're supposed to be, you'll have already been processed, assigned a case number, and placed in a facility where you'll wait 6 months for a hearing that will keep getting postponed." The casual efficiency of it made Sonia's blood run cold. "You've done this before. 6 times successfully. 3 more we attempted but failed when their supervisors intervened too quickly. Too persistent. Each one eventually gave up, accepted plea deals, or simply vanished into the system long enough that their cases became irrelevant." Frost checked her watch. "But I'm offering you something different. A choice." "What choice?" "Stop investigating. Sign a statement saying your allegations were based on misunderstandings and procedural errors. Accept a reassignment to a quiet field office somewhere far from here, and this all goes away. Your record stays clean. Your career continues. You go home tonight." Sonia let the offer hang in the air between them. It was tempting. God, it was tempting. 4 hours ago, she'd been doing her job. Now she was handcuffed in the back of a van, her entire life unraveling, facing months or years in detention, fighting charges she couldn't prove were false. But then she thought about Carla Mendez, about the 17 agents before her, about every person whose life had been weaponized to feed a profit margin. "No," Sonia said. Frost's expression didn't change. "That's disappointing. You're going to detain me anyway, whether I sign or not." "True, but signing would have made things easier for you, more comfortable, better facility, faster processing. Now," she shrugged, "you'll go where everyone else goes, and you'll wait." Frost moved toward the doors. Sonia's mind raced, searching for leverage, for anything that might change the equation. Then she remembered Vance's words. "Stay alive. Don't sign anything. You're making a mistake," Sonia said. Frost paused. "How so?" "My attorney already knows about ClearPath Solutions. He's already traced the ownership to Sentinel. And he's smart enough to know that if I disappear, it proves everything. Your attorney will receive notification that you've been transferred to ICE custody pending investigation. He'll file motions that will be delayed, postponed, and eventually denied. By the time he gets anywhere near the truth, you'll be one of hundreds of detainees in the system with similar stories, just another case file. Unless I'm not alone. Sonia met Frost's eyes. How many other agents have you detained? How many are sitting in facilities right now, waiting for hearings that never come? What happens when my attorney starts finding them, starts connecting the cases, starts building a pattern? For the first time, Frost's confidence flickered. Just for a second, but Sonia saw it. You can't silence all of us, Sonia continued. And the more people you try to bury, the bigger the pattern becomes. Eventually someone will notice. A journalist, a congressional committee, an inspector general, and when they do, this whole system collapses. Frost was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You're assuming you'll live long enough to matter. Detention facilities can be dangerous places. People get hurt. Medical care gets delayed. Sometimes detainees just don't make it through the process. The threat was clear. But so was the fear beneath it. Frost was powerful, connected, protected by layers of corporate structure and government contracts. But she was also vulnerable. One case falling apart, one agent getting out, one story reaching the right person, and everything she'd built would crumble. I'm not signing anything, Sonia said, and I'm not staying quiet. Frost stared at her for another moment, then climbed out of the van. Take her to Facility 7, she told someone outside. Standard processing, no special accommodations. The doors slammed shut. Darkness again, but something had shifted. Frost had shown her hand. More importantly, she'd shown her weakness. This system only worked if it stayed hidden, if people stayed silent, if victims stayed isolated. The van started moving again. Sonia leaned back against the metal wall, her wrists aching from the handcuffs. She didn't know where they were taking her, didn't know how long she'd be detained, didn't know if Vance could really prove anything before it was too late. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She wasn't the first person they'd tried to bury, and she wouldn't be the last. Unless someone broke the pattern, unless someone refused to disappear quietly. The van turned onto what felt like a highway, picking up speed. Sonia closed her eyes and started mentally cataloging everything she'd learned. Every name, every facility, every detail that might matter later. Because eventually she'd get out. Eventually she'd get a phone call, a hearing, a chance to speak. And when that moment came, she'd be ready. Not just for herself, but for Carla Mendez. For the 17 agents before her. For everyone still trapped in a system designed to make them invisible. Somewhere in the darkness ahead, that moment was waiting. Sonia just had to survive long enough to reach it. The van drove through darkness for what felt like hours. Sonia counted every turn, memorized every detail, stayed sharp, because staying sharp was the only weapon she had left. But the story doesn't end in that van. 6 months later, Jennifer Vance's investigation reached the Department of Justice Inspector General. She'd found 12 more agents, documented the pattern, connected Sentinel logistics to 47 fabricated detention cases. The evidence was undeniable. Sonia was released after 18 days in detention, the moment Vance's evidence reached a federal judge who hadn't been blocked by the conspiracy. When she walked out, she went straight to Vance's office with every name, every date, every detail she'd memorized in that cell. The lawsuit took 3 years. Federal prosecutors charged 8 people with conspiracy, fraud, and civil rights violations. Sentinel Logistics faced congressional hearings. Their contracts were suspended. Facilities were investigated. In 2023, a jury awarded Sonia Blake $9.2 million in damages, $800,000 in compensatory damages, and $8.4 million in punitive damages, specifically designed to punish Sentinel Logistics and deter future abuse. The largest settlement ever paid in a case involving wrongful immigration detention of a federal agent. But the money wasn't the victory. The victory was Carla Mendez walking free. The victory was 17 agents getting their careers back. The victory was a system being forced into the light. Sonia still works as a deputy U.S. Marshal, still tracks fugitives, protects judges, upholds the law. But now she also trains agents on detention procedures, on recognizing systematic abuse, on knowing when the system itself becomes the threat. Because sometimes the most dangerous criminals aren't the ones wearing handcuffs, they're the ones holding the keys.